Hey guys, welcome to another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports with myself, Liam Jenkins, where, you've guessed it, we go over everything that happened this week in Philadelphia sports. Again. If you're new around here, guys, and you enjoy this sort of content, make sure you leave a like and hit that subscribe button down below. It really does mean a lot to us here at Philly Sports Network. And before we get started with anything, I need to make a quick disclaimer, and that is, you may think, wow, Liam's voice sounds a little bit lower today, or like a little bit off. And there's a reason for that. So yesterday I went to watch my favourite English football team, Charlton Athletic, play in their final game of the season and kind of broke my voice a little bit. So please bear with me if I do sound a little bit less like a 12-year-old and more like a 14-year-old with a chest infection. We're going to get straight into the Eagles discussion this week, and the team made two big moves. The first one coming on Friday night, where a familiar face now returns to the safety position, and that man is none other than Blake Countess, a former 6th round pick of the Eagles in 2015, who originally started out as a corner, moved over to safety and lost the battle with Jalen Watkins. He was one of the big victims of that year's roster cuts, and the team were hoping to get him back on their practice squad, but unfortunately those pesky Rams snatched him away. However, since then he's actually carved out quite a nice career for himself. He's been a perennial special teamer that now has experience in the return game, but has logged a career 37 appearances in that span. Has 44 defensive tackles to his name and has led the Rams in special teams tackles in the last 2 years. And at 25 years old, Countess still does have a very high ceiling. Now, why did the Rams let him go? While Blake Countess stood his ground and stomped his feet and got ready for war, the Rams suddenly realised none of his money's guaranteed, all $2 million of it, so they just let him go. So he now returns to the team that drafted him with hopes of a second win and with some experience under his belt to carve out a role on this team. Now this move should at least relieve some concerns about the safety position. Coming out of the draft, the Eagles didn't take one, and although there have been a slew of undrafted free agents, there are none that are immediately going to go and compete, which has left fans wondering, are we going to see maybe Avonte Maddox or Rasul Douglas, maybe even Jalen Mills move to safety, or are the team comfortable with their 4 guys now, being Malcolm Jenkins, Rodney McLeod, Andrew Sende, and Trey Sullivan? Countess, at a minimum, will come in and compete for that 4th safety spot and maybe even sneak in some defensive snaps as well. As someone that averaged 24.6 yards on kick returns, he adds an immediate sense of value to Dave Phipp's special teams unit, not to mention his reliability as a special teams tackler. As we said, he's now led the Rams in back-to-back seasons on that front, so at the very least, he's a big addition to Phipp's already prestigious special teams unit, with a slightly higher ceiling of maybe sneaking onto defense and becoming that safety that the Eagles would have drafted. If you think of Countess, the deal they've got him on is going to be very reminiscent of what they'd be paying a rookie had they taken one in those first few rounds. And being 25 years old with experience under his belt, you're probably going to get more of an instant impact out of Blake Countess than you would out of one of those rookies. But that wasn't the only move the team made. They also went out of their way and signed former Washington Redskins linebacker Zach Brown to a 1-year deal. Now this move was revered by the fan base. Everyone broke down, throwing parties, champagne went everywhere. Who can blame them? This was an absolute steal, because at 29 years old, he has now combined for 223 tackles in the last 2 seasons alone. But for all the Pro Football Focus lovers out there, he actually ranked as their 3rd highest graded linebacker overall in 2018. His coverage saw a big step up. We know he's great in run defense. Look no further for evidence than that tackle against Josh Adams last year. And the only 2 linebackers to finish with a better grade were Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly. So it's not exactly bad company. Now, some say he took a step back in 2018. That may be down to the fact he had an oblique injury for 10 weeks, which would be purple. Now, your oblique, hang on, I'm going to stand up for this, is this bit here, alright? It's, these hips don't lie, but it's this bit here. Now, imagine someone punching you in there and it bruising, being purple, not being able to breathe, and then having to play a competitive game of football where you're tackling and you're constantly relying on that hip fluidity and coverage to get sideline to sideline, which is what Brown does so well. That would be a living nightmare, and somehow Brown still put up 96 tackles and was an absolute force in the run game. His ability to close down on screens, to read the play before it's happened, sit tightly on those run pass options. The guy's a monster, and partner with Nigel Bradham, this could be a very dangerous pairing, and it's a fantastic replacement for Jordan Hicks. And if things don't pan out, hey, it's a 1-year deal. If they do, you've still got Paul Warrior, you've got Kamuguchi Hill, LJ, not me, we mean LJ, for the other LJ, and Nate Jerry, who make up the rest of that linebacker crop. So there's now plenty of depth there. There are a lot of special teams guys. There's a lot of rotational potential, and given that the Eagles like to keep 2 linebackers on the field at the same time, I think a pairing of Bradham and Zach Brown could be masterful. But for more on that, we'll take a look at the tape. There'll be an Eagles film room coming out soon. Really quickly, guys, thank you so much for all the support this week. The responses to the film rooms that have gone up this week have been through the roof. Thank you so much if you've taken the time to watch it, to comment, to agree, disagree, point out a spelling error, whatever it may be. It has been a real grind trying to get one out every single day, but it has been so fun, and I promise you there's only more where that came from. On to the Philadelphia 76ers, and in real time, they're about to take on Toronto Raptors for Game 4 of their semi-final series. But if we're looking back retrospectively, what a showing from Joel Embiid. 33 points, he shot 51% from the field and helped the Sixers absolutely rout this team to take a series lead. Something which a lot of people didn't consider. This team was written off by many national analysts. They weren't given much of a chance. But at home, the Raptors walked into the Lions' den and were ripped to pieces. Joel Embiid with the most dominant showing I have ever seen from Joel Embiid. I think it was 5 total blocks in the end. Ben Simmons was assisting prolifically. Jimmy Butler playing at his best. And the Sixers, more importantly, got so much out of their bench. Toronto wore down. They refused to bring guys in and keep that rotation going. Whereas the Sixers were happy to give guys like Mike Scott a shot, to get those guys rolling, to build up that momentum and chemistry. And it worked wonders. Toronto had no answer, and they could not make the most of when the starters were off the floor. So rotation, hats off to Brett Brown there for making a big time coaching call. It seemed to work absolute wonders. Will they go up and take a 2-game lead tonight? I don't know. I mean, I'm optimistic. You can't not be. That is a really deflating performance for the Raptors. They fell flat on their face. I mean, they've got Fred VanVleet. I'm not really sure what we can expect, really. But that's the sort of performance that will knock the wind out of you. And if you can't respond, the Sixers have to be sniffing blood in the water. They've got to get into this matchup, set the pacing, set the toning early, get some big defensive stops, and let that crowd roar behind them to really knock down some of those ice-looking walls that Toronto put up to their mystique. So it's going to be a very fun matchup. I can't wait to watch it and see what pans out. But the Sixers looking very good. Even in a worst case scenario where they go back on the road to Toronto and they can't quite get the job done and the series does end up tied once again, this is an ultra competitive series for this team. The Sixers are looking good. They're sitting pretty. They've really improved from Game 1 to Game 2. Who says? I mean, we're used to Philadelphia being underdogs. Can the Sixers go on and win it all? Maybe. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here, but there's a real sense of belief now within this team. The Phillies are an interesting team this week. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games, which spans more than a week, but that's not the point. They're still top of the Eastern, although there seems to be a little bit of drama, kind of, with old Brycey boy. Bryce Harper seemed to throw a tantrum in the game against Detroit recently, which threw up a million articles saying, how do you handle a star? What do you do if you're the Phillies? What do you do when Bryce Harper's hitting 277 and we paid him all this money and now he's getting ejected for arguing referee? Guys, again, it's not that deep. He's a star. That's what stars do. He's obviously frustrated. I can't blame him. I don't think anyone can blame the frustration. He's not going to sit there and just take it. Let's be honest here. I think for most fans, I'd be right in saying that, again, as someone that doesn't objectively watch the Phillies as much as some of you do, because my focus obviously on analysis is more on the Eagles, I don't care. If I put it in an Eagles perspective, if Carson Wentz throws 30 touchdowns, or if he throws 3 and the backfield rush for 30 touchdowns, as long as the team win, the fans don't really care. The teammates don't really care. It's all about the team. And if Bryce Harper isn't hitting what he should be at 2-7, then so what? If Bryce Harper's getting ejected, did they win the game? Did what? Did they win? All that matters, come the end of the season, is that the Phillies are at the top. It doesn't matter how they get there. It doesn't matter who shines. Who, obviously, well, it kind of does. They're paying him a lot of money. But this is a long-term stint. I mean, again, baseball season is a long haul. It goes on and on and on and on. Don't panic. It's Bryce Harper. He is the best at what he does. And obviously, I think it's safe to say this is very reminiscent of the Alshon Jeffrey trade for the Eagles. Look at how much the offense opened up when Alshon Jeffrey was a factor. Look at what the team could do with tight ends. Look at what the Phillies are doing with guys like Reese Hoskins, guys like Segura, guys like Herrera. This is big. This is what the impact of a star is, and that's why the team bought him. They don't need him to be hitting elite numbers every year. There shouldn't be an expectation for a Hall of Fame level season every season. As he gets older and teams adjust to him and they work out traits and that sort of thing, it doesn't really matter. Bryce Harper is going to have ups, he's going to have downs. The main thing is the team are winning, which they are. And finally, while today's theme is my loss of voice due to Charlton Athletic going up and me screaming LA, 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 football's coming home, but not to Charlton, who are in the playoffs, might I add. The Philadelphia Union won 6-1 today over the New England Revolution to stay tied at the top with DC United of the Eastern Conference. That is going to massively help their goal difference. 2 goals from Santos Gomez, another from Ilsinho, had this team flying into the second half. I mean, somehow, Toronto have 3 games in hand. There's been 11 games. That in 11 games, you've somehow got a team with scheduling there. Someone's got to do some better, but the Philadelphia Union are top again. Evelyn's going well. Are they going to finally get some silverware for that team that has been begging for it for so many years? Could this be the year? Who knows? Football may be coming home, but I hope you've enjoyed today's show, guys. From myself, Liam Jenkins, please leave a like, hit subscribe and a comment, and let me know your thoughts on today's stories. Do you agree, disagree? What are your takeaways from the news of the week? Be sure to follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21, and I'll see you all very soon for another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports.